Forced marriage is a form of abuse. It's a form of torture and it's a form of violence. The first 6 years of my life were really nice. I was in care. I didn't have any worries in my life really. It was just a really happy time. The day my mum came to pick me up from the children's home, I felt really happy. When I got to my mum's house, it wasn't as I had expected. I had to get used to the clothes, the food, the language. I wasn't loved there at all. I was beaten, I was abused all the time for not doing things right, and I was just used as a domestic slave really. It was just horrible. It was a horrible, horrible, evil time in my life, but it got worse. At the age of 13, my mother told me we're going on holiday to Pakistan. For the first few months, it was good. My mother had a house and it was surrounded by acres and acres of land, and so I could climb the trees and eat the fruits off the trees and all that, and it was really nice. A family started coming to the house, and about a week later my mother asked me which of the two guys I liked the look of, and I was quickly told I was going to be married. I just thought, but I'm only 13, how can that happen, you know? About a week later, the family came back. I was quickly ushered in and told to change my clothes, and I was given an old red suit to wear. The priest came in and he said, say these words after me. And I just mumbled them because I didn't know what he was saying. And then a few minutes later, my mother came in and said, "You're married now, that's it. Go home with your husband now." And she whispered in my ear, "Don't you dare make a scene, just go." And she just pushed me out the house. And I just looked at this guy and I was expected to go with him. I had absolutely no idea about marriage. I had no idea what was going to happen next. No, I was 13 years old. I can't talk about what happened over the next 3 days. I've blocked it out. It's a past memory and I don't want to speak about it. But when I came back to my mother's home after 3 days, I tried to commit suicide. I took some medicines and I just wanted to die because that was the only way that I thought I could escape the nightmare that was happening. After I woke up, my so-called husband, he said to me, the doctor thinks you're expecting and that's why you've been unconscious for 3 days, because your body's adjusting to it. That means you can go back to the UK soon. I didn't know what expecting was, but I happily then thought, well, I'll go through anything. I can cope with anything as long as I'm going back to the UK. Having a baby and having something to live for, it changed me as a person immensely. Being beaten didn't really hurt me anymore because I knew I could go and play with my baby. He was my delight actually. 2 years later, my brother bought a shop and so I had to leave Asma, my baby, at home with my mother, and I really feared for him. I came home one day and I put him to bed and he flinched and he had a bruise on his back, and so he was getting the same kind of treatment as I was. I just prayed that I could find a way out of my situation. At the age of 18, a family friend came to stay with us, and he really kind of stuck up for me, and so when he asked us to leave with him, it had way out in bright lights just surrounded him really, and so I didn't think twice. I just said yes. My family weren't happy with me leaving, putting it mildly. The police turned up on my doorstep. They told me that my brother had sent some people down to kidnap me, and the police found a sword and nunchucks and a baseball bat in the boot of the car. My brother was capable of killing me, and I know for a fact that that's what would have happened. I was determined to put my story out there to help young people who have been forced into marriage. Just because I'm from a different culture doesn't mean that within my culture that, you know, forced marriage is acceptable, because it's not. And the difference between an arranged marriage and a forced marriage. An arranged marriage is Match.com within the Asian community. You're given that opportunity to meet up and say no to the person or yes. And a forced marriage is when you don't have a choice. It's all about consent. A consent means that you are able to say yes to that marriage without any pressures. I've spoken to many teachers off the record, and they have said, yes, we know it's going on. A few girls disappear each month, but we can't do anything about it. That is shocking. Who can do something about it? We have to start speaking out.